Hey guys, what's up, how's it going? My name is Robin and welcome once again back to another video on my channel. And in today's video, I'm going to be talking about and showing you guys how you can make $1,000 a month strictly from dividend investing. So before we go any further, I want you guys to take a couple seconds just to think to yourself how much your life could change if you guys had an extra $1,000 a month that would just be thrown into your bank account passively without you having to do any extra work or anything like that. I want you guys to think about that, because when it comes to dividend investing, you can actually make money passively by not even doing anything. You can theoretically make money while you sleep. And I know when it comes to investing, it's one of those hard things to really wrap your head around, the sense of, if I had like a large portfolio, it would take a lot of money to kind of get to that $1,000 a month kind of goal. But the thing when it comes to investing, specifically dividend investing, is it's kind of like a snowball, right? You start it off small, you keep rolling that snowball, and then eventually that portfolio grows. And your first couple years, as you're putting the bulk of your money inside your portfolio and you're growing it, are going to be the hardest. But once you kind of get things going, once you hit, that $10,000, $25,000, $50,000, then you eventually hit six figures, things really start to pick up, and you'll be surprised at how quickly your portfolio will grow. So the first couple years are really tough, and you're not going to be making a ton of money. You might make like a couple cents a month for your first month or two, and then that might be a couple dollars, then that might go to like $10 or $15, but it does exponentially grow. And the quicker you get that snowball started, the faster you're going to get to that $1,000 a month goal. And to give you guys an example, when I first started my dividend portfolio on this channel back in January of 2020, it's been 12 months since we've grown it. My portfolio didn't make a lot of money, and I was just putting an extra couple $100 a month inside the portfolio to start. It would be like $50 here every other day, maybe $100 here. Whenever I had some free cash, I was sticking that inside my portfolio. My first month on this channel, I only made 44 cents. So it might start off slow, but it definitely does grow as time goes on. And if we fast forward to 12 months later, you guys can see here that the portfolio is actually making $50 a month. We just finished up January 2020, and the portfolio just hit before the end of the new year. After 12 months of investing and growing the portfolio completely from scratch, we just hit our first $50 a month. So yeah, it does take time, but the quicker you get it started, the quicker things can grow. And now we have that money coming inside of our portfolio on a regular basis, no matter what. And I know what you guys are thinking, a couple bucks here, $5 a month, $10 a month, $20 a month, $50 a month. Doesn't seem like a lot of cash, but what I kind of did is throughout my portfolio, my journey on this channel, is I tried to look at the simple things that even just like $10, $20 a month can really give you. It could be something like paying for your daily cup of coffee or something, or going grocery shopping and buying some groceries, or maybe paying for a video game or something, or helping pay for your phone bill, like simple things like that. Those dividends can really do. So when I first started dividend investing, I was looking at the simple things of what my portfolio can do to make my life simple, and also kind of cut back so that I could save more money and just appreciate more things in life in general. So for me, this was a really cool experience, and my number one goal for my entire portfolio is not just to hit $1,000 a month, like that is a huge goal of mine, but it's actually to pay for everything that I own with my dividends. I know I'm a long way off, but we're definitely getting there, and I think this whole kind of experience has been really, really cool for me. So now that I've shown you guys the powering effect of compound interest in the growing sense, and when it comes to dividend investing, and talking about like how dividends can just a couple extra bucks a month really change your life, let's talk about how you can get started with dividend investing. So when it comes to investing into companies, I always like to pick good, solid companies that have a long history of growing, and they're like blue chip kind of type companies that are just big companies that are always consistently growing. And I'll show you guys some of the stocks I actually invest throughout this video, but let's talk about what to look for when it comes to picking a dividend-based company. So one thing I really want to get across to you guys is that when it comes to investing, I'm a big fan of picking solid companies that have a long history of growth and are going to continue to grow. When it comes to dividend investing, this is an important feature. So in today's video, I'm going to take some companies inside my portfolio. We're going to analyze them really quickly here, and I'm going to show you guys some simple things to look into when you're buying dividend-based stocks. So the stock we're going to be talking about right now is TD stock. It's my favorite Canadian bank, and TD stock is just one of the biggest banks in Canada. It's one of the largest banks, as you guys can see here. It has a market cap of $130 billion, so we can see that it's quite huge. Now, some other things we want to look for when it comes to investing into dividend stocks are things like payout ratios, earnings, how is the company growing, and dividend growth over time. So let's take a peek at a few of those things when it comes to TD stock. So once again, if we go back to Yahoo Finance, we can see here, we can look at the quarterly and annual earnings of TD. And when it comes to these big companies, the nice thing about them is they have a lot of money. They're also one of the fastest growing companies because, you know, when you have a big company, they have a lot of money to invest. They just keep growing. It's almost like the snowball effect when it comes to dividend stocks. If you invest in companies that are already big, they already have a giant snowball. So they just have more resources. They already have income coming in. And this is why I'm a big fan of just picking good, solid companies. So a few things you want to look for when it comes to earnings, you just want to see consistent revenue and consistent earning growth. So if we go to the annual tab here for TD stock, once we have it selected on Yahoo Finance, we can see here that in 2017 to 2018, we've seen growth. There was growth for revenue and earnings. 2018 to 2019, we see once again growth. And these are good signs. And now 2020 was obviously, you know, a rough year for a lot of companies because of, you know, the pandemic and whatnot. So this is expected, but TD did really, really well. We see nice, even though it was a bit of dip in earnings and whatnot, this happens. It's actually not too bad. So when it comes to 2020, we can actually look at the quarterly earnings and revenue of TD to get a better sense of how they did. So in the first quarter of 2020, they did pretty good here. And the second quarter, when the lockdown happened, they obviously didn't do very great, but everybody, you know, suffered, revenue and earnings losses. And the quarter three, they had a nice recovery. And going into quarter four, look at this recovery for TD stock. So this basically is just showing us that TD stock is one of those companies that's going to stand the test of time, and they just keep growing their earnings. This is one of the biggest things you want to look for a stock, because if their earnings are growing over time, we can expect, you know, stock appreciation. We can expect dividend growth as time goes on as well. The other important thing we want to look at when we're assessing a company, and once again, we're using TD as an example. As you guys can see, there's a reason why TD is one of my favorite Canadian-based dividend stock here. But we can see that is the stock appreciation over time. Like, how much is that stock price growing? Now, when it comes to dividend investing, we can see here that TD has a dividend yield of 4.39%. So if you bought a share of the company, that's what yield you're going to get on a yearly basis. Now, when it comes to dividend yields, that's great. You know, we want to see good dividend income, but we also want to see stock appreciation. And you look at a company like TD, ever since, you know, we're going to look at about 2000 here, the stock was trading about $17 Canadian. Fast forward 20 years later, the stock is now trading at about $70 Canadian. So that's a huge increase over time. So if you invested in TD over the past 20 years, you would have got huge stock appreciation as that stock growth, plus that compounding effect of those dividends being reinvested in the company and that dividend growth. So stock appreciation is really important, and it's definitely something to look at. And these big companies, generally speaking, if we look at them, generally do have stock appreciation as time goes on. Now, when it comes to dividend stocks, dividend growth and dividend yield is important, but remember, we're not looking at a stock that has the highest dividend yield. As the example I showed you guys earlier, TD had a dividend yield of about 4%, which is pretty good. You know, it's not too low and that's not too high. That's actually nice in the sweet spot. But one of the more important features you want to look for when a stocks is the dividend growth. Like, how much are they growing that dividend over time? You know, if we bought a dividend today, or if we bought it 10 years ago, what would that now be paying us going into the future? So dividend growth rate is also super important. And I'd say it's actually even more important than the dividend yield of a specific company. So let's take a peek at the dividend growth rate of TD stock over the past couple of years, and let's kind of analyze it and see how, you know, good that company would have been if we would have invested them over time and seen how their dividends have grown. So I managed to find this cool little graph here that shows the history of TD, their dividend growth over the past couple of years. So hope this kind of gives you guys a nice little visualization of how this works. So this is the shareholder performance of the dividend history over the past 20 years of TD stock. So in 1999, TD had a dividend of 0.36 cents Canadian per share for the company. So if you bought the company share at that year, that's how much you would get in a dividend from that year. And as you guys can see, if we go over the next couple of years here, TD stock on a yearly basis saw a 11% annualized growth. So imagine every single year that you invest in TD, that 36 cents would grow by 10%. And then in 2000, it would grow by another 10 or 11%. And then it just kept going on. And you can see in the past 5 years, we've seen absolutely huge growth from TD stock. And over the past 20 years, if you started investing in 1999, you would have been paid once again, you know, a dividend of 0.36 cents per share. And now in 2019, that would have been $2.89. So you can see that absolutely crazy growth. That is almost like a 200% growth, whatever you, I don't know the math on that, but you know, that's a lot of growth when it comes to dividend investing. And those same shares you bought, you know, 20 years ago, are, instead of earning you 36 cents per share, are now earning you $2.89. That is absolutely crazy growth. So when you want to look at a company, any company that has like a dividend growth rate of about like 10 or 11% is absolutely crazy, especially for a stock like this. So, you know, you want to look for companies that are growing their dividends over time. Now, the last metric I kind of pay attention to when it comes to a quick analysis is the dividend payout ratio. So the payout ratio basically tells us how much of the company's earnings are they paying out in a dividend. So this is important, and it tells us like how consistent will this dividend be in the future. Because if a company is paying out too many of its earnings to a dividend, then they could get some problems with like their capital. They could have some problems with their debt, right? Because they don't have as much money to grow the company. It's kind of like, imagine if you had a budget and you had like on 0 to 100%, how much are you spending on expenses? If you're spending like 70% of your money on expenses, that doesn't leave you with a lot of money to kind of just save or to reinvest or do whatever it is what you're doing. So when it comes to the payout ratio, once again, we're looking at a company with a low payout ratio because this shows us that they are paying out less money into their dividends, and they'll just be able to weather like financial crisis or anything like that can happen, and they'll have more room to grow their dividend in the future. So let's take a quick peek at TD Stock's payout ratio. So I'm on MarketBeat here, which is a cool little website that allows us to show you guys the payout ratios of a company. So if you look at TD Stock, we can see that their dividend yield once again is 4.32% at $3.11 per share Canadian, and their payout ratio is sitting at about 48%. So this is a relatively low payout ratio, especially for a company that has experienced so much growth as TD. And you guys can see that they had their last recent increase of 5 cents on 2020. So they actually increased their dividend in 2020. So that's really cool. So, you know, throughout the year, as I bought TD stock in 2019, if you bought the stock, you would have experienced an increase in 2020. So when it comes to payout ratios, you want to look for companies that have the lowest payout ratios possible. And most companies will probably have around the, I would say, about 40 to 60 range. That's probably ideal, although it's okay depending on what the company is to be a little bit higher. But if you want like a nice, good long-term growth-based company, a company like TD that has that 40 to 50% payout ratio, especially in times of like a pandemic, is pretty impressive. And this really just shows us that TD has a lot of room to grow their dividend in the future, which once again, one of the most important things is the dividend growth of a company. And last but not least, one important thing to also talk about in terms of a company increasing their dividends over time is you also want to not invest in a company that has decreased their dividends, because this shows us that they're not, I mean, if your whole goal is to make money from dividend investing and make that $1,000 a month, if a company is decreasing their dividend, then you're going to be making less money. You want companies that increase their dividends, not decrease them. So be sure to check the dividend history of a company before you invest into them, and make sure they're having like long years of dividend increases, and look for any dividend decreases and kind of analyze and be like, okay, why did they cut their dividends? What's going on here? Is this likely to happen in the future? These are important things to look at. So always make sure a company is increasing their dividend yield and their dividends as time goes on. And before we go any further, guys, I think it's important to talk about one thing that I think a lot of people on YouTube, especially if people who watch YouTube channels, you need to pay attention to, is that a lot of people will talk about companies like maybe small time growing companies that hit some big yields or some big growth over time, and they'll try to hype up these stocks. And when it comes to investing in the stocks, I'm always a big fan of investing in the solid companies that have long-term history of growth, because then you can just predict that going into the future, they're probably just going to grow. These are companies like the big ones like Microsoft, Visa, McDonald's, Pepsi, and if we're looking at Canadian companies like Canadian Tire or TD Bank or, Enbridge or different ones like that. Like, these are these companies that have these big histories and big growths. And I think investing in these kind of companies are the best way to invest your money. And remember, guys, you don't need a lot of money when it comes to starting a dividend-based portfolio. Even if you can just put like $50 a month or $100 a month, just something to get things started and see the ball rolling. Over time, you can work on your personal finance. You can find ways to grow your income. You can start like a YouTube channel or something like that. Do something on the side. And one thing to think about is whenever you get paid money, think about that money as an opportunity to grow your income and earn you more money, because you could take that money, invest it into dividend-based stocks, and now you have regular money coming in. So that money is making you money. So once again, that's a cool little trick to encourage yourself to save your money, invest it, is to think, every dollar that you make, that dollar can now make you more money and will continue to make you more money, and then that money that is made from that money will continue to grow, and etc. You get the kind of whole point there. So it's kind of an inspiring way to get yourself to save your money and look at the future when it comes to growing your dividend portfolio to hit that $1,000 a month goal. So when it comes to my personal journey and my investing, I have a long ways to go. I've only been investing in my portfolio, and I have the goal of eventually getting my dividends to pay for everything that I own. So even though I'm only making $50 a month, the portfolio is making more in stock appreciation as time goes on. And even though it might take a long ways to go, I'm learning how to experience the little things in life. So if you guys want to join me on this journey and you guys want to see how dividend investing works by a day-by-day basis, be sure to subscribe to the channel and consider giving the video a big thumbs up, as it really helps me out. So let me know know what you guys think in the comment section of this video. If there's anything you guys need help with when it comes to dividend investing, please let me know. So I hope you guys liked this video. I hope it enjoyed you, and I hope it got you one step closer to hitting that $1,000 a month goal with dividend investing. Take care, guys, and I'll see you guys later.